Now, I am so excited. I am going to introduce you to Omnia. You can't automate chaos, scaling procurement with AI native orchestration. Now, joining me today is Ben, and he is the CEO. But before I tell you about that, let me tell you about Omnia. It's an AI native platform that streamlines procurement across teams and systems. Now, it improves not only the buying experience, but it also centralizes supplier management and builds commercial and risk governance into every step. It was founded only in 2022, and it's already become a trusted brand. Omnia is trusted by global enterprises, including Spotify, the Adecco Group, Entrust, MongoDB, and Monzo, and many, many more. Now, today, presenting is Ben Freeman. He's the founder and CEO of Omnia, the leading AI native intake and orchestration platforms that helps companies automate their procurement and supplier management processes using AI. Ben founded Omnia in 2022 and has built the business into one of Europe's fastest growing technology companies, and hopefully soon one of the US's fastest. He's raised over $75 million from tier one investors, including Accel, Khosla, and Insight Partners. Now, before building Omnia, Ben built cybersecurity business Tession, which raised over 130 million from the likes of Sequoia, Accel, and Balderton before a successful exit to Proofpoint. And I will say, while you're relatively new, getting your name out there within the United States, our members within North America that have used you are raving about you. So you're doing something right, and your market entrance is coming in with a very positive note behind your name. So it's a great asterisk to have. We love doing business with Omnia. So why don't we go back? Why don't we jump into your fireside chat? Folks, as you put questions in, please don't put them in the chat. Move them over to the Q&A. I will lose them in the chat. We will try and get to all your questions. If we don't, Ben and James have said that they will follow up with you afterward. So James, we're going to invite you on camera, and I'm going to go off and let you guys do a fireside chat.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Dawn. And James, great to have you here.
Thanks, Ben.
I
Thanks, Tom.
think we're also going to do a poll, but perhaps we'll do it after the fireside chat so that everyone's kind of warmed up, ready to answer. So yeah, let's jump into things. And frankly, James, this is really about you. So I'm going to talk a lot less now and kind of hand the mic over. But thank you very much for joining us. Maybe we could just start with a quick intro, your role at Thumbtack, a bit about your background and your experience with these procurement transformation projects.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ben. I've been in procurement for about 13 years now. I started out in oil and gas and then spent some time in automotive and healthcare with larger companies before joining Thumbtack about 5.5 years ago to build the procurement function from scratch. Most of my experience most of my experience came from large, complex organizations, public companies, where you're essentially, piloting a cruise ship. Lots of process, heavy process, and change is extremely slow. Thumbtack really was my chance to operate more like a speedboat rather than a cruise ship, and take what I learned about good process uh, and the risk management and apply it with a lot more flexibility and agility to set things up in a way that like fits the business and really reduces the time people spend in the procurement process, which had always been a complaint from all of my stakeholders up to that point.
Nice, very exciting. And I suppose I know obviously I've known you for a few years now, and Thumbtack was kind of that big opportunity for you at the time. I think most people on the call will probably be familiar with the brand, but maybe tell us a bit more kind of about the organization, who is Thumbtack, and also what did procurement actually look like when you arrived? Was it anything there, or it was literally a blank slate?
Yeah, so as far as what is Thumbtack, what do we do? We are a home services marketplace. So if you need something done in your home, so repairs, remodels, maintenance, anything you don't want to do, we can connect you with local trusted professionals who have verified ratings and reviews within our platform. We're about 1,200 employees, and we've had several raises, which include investors like Sequoia and Capital G. So that's who Thumbtack is, and I lead a three-person procurement team of the 1,200 that we roll into the finance team. Initially, when I joined, there wasn't a formal procurement function. There was a very light process which was manual, email based with group Google groups, ad hoc, yeah, everything through Slack. When yeah, so there was a lot of back and forth in informal channels to get anything done. So my first job was to take that informal inbox driven process and really start layering in a process and
Yeah.
controls that would bring legal and security and all the friends and the business into something that worked for everyone.
I love that. Now,
Nice.
gentlemen, before you jump further into the chat, we do have a poll, and I know your fireside chat might change a little bit on the questions you asked based on the results. So do you mind if I launch that right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and folks, if you have multiple screens, do look for it. It could pop out on a separate screen. But the first question is, are you using an intake and orchestration provider today? Yes or no? Do you have P2P in place? Yes or no? Are you embarking on a procurement transformation project in 2026? Yes? No, it'll be 2027. No, I'm not considering it yet at all. And have you already evaluated the intake orchestration market? And all of these are single choice. And so the last one is yes, no, not yet, but I'd like to. So we're going to leave that open for just a few seconds and then we'll populate the results. So I thought maybe that it would be helpful to steer your fireside chat in the right
Absolutely.
direction
Yeah.
based on the audience. So,
Yeah,
okay.
no, thanks for jumping in, Dawn. I think I like we survey questions like this every probably about every quarter, maybe a bit less frequent now. And it's
Uh-huh.
interesting to see the market change because a few years ago, people didn't have a clue about, this market was young. People didn't really know. And so it'll be interesting to see what sort of recognition there is now, what people are using. I think everything's just being disrupted. So should be
Oh,
exciting to see the results.
absolutely. And yeah, I agree. There's a bell curve that we hit where suddenly people are saying, yes, we're starting to come up this curve. We know what orchestration is. We know what all of this automation is. We know what AI is. And it really has changed the last couple of years. So we're going to populate the results in just a second. Here they come. Oh,
Okay.
okay. So no to the first one. Do you have a P2P in place? Majority do. Are you embarking on transformation? 59% yes. So that's awesome. And have you evaluated intake? And that's a great split. Yes, no, not yet, but I'd like to. So
Interesting.
that's your
Yeah.
audience that's going to be listening to you, Ben and James. So with that, I'm going to go
Thank
back
you
off
very much,
screen.
Dawn.
Yeah, and
And
let you
maybe
take it away.
I'll briefly comment on these, James, before we come to the chat. It's very interesting results because I think firstly, that's a 24% of you are using an intake and orchestration provider. I know we have a handful of customers on the call, so some of that will be us, some will be competitors. But that is interesting. That's more than usual. So this is a very modern, informed group of people that we're speaking to, which is helpful. I'd say still 76% don't know. So it's clearly a young market. If we did the same, I think if you compare that to P2P, so 66% have a P2P. I'm not surprised by that actually. One thing worth mentioning is we have about just under half of our customers plug us into their P2P and use us as an intake and front door. And then the others plug us straight into the ERP. So I know James will get onto this, but you obviously use Cooper and plug into that. So it's interesting that there's that diversity now because I think that market's changing. And then very exciting, almost 60% are doing a transformation project this calendar year. You have 9 and a bit months left. So it's a busy group of people, which is great. Um, and then there you go. Yeah, a third haven't yet evaluated the market, and yeah. Okay. Well, by the way, everyone will follow up with the data, and we'll share some of this as part of a broader survey. But very interesting results, and definitely will help James and I kind of inform this conversation. And maybe James, if kind of segueing onto that, I wanted to understand you've basically inherited a completely greenfield site at Thumbtack. The team's only three, which is very lean for the size of a company, if we're honest. So you must have got to a point where you decided, right, you need some tooling. And I imagine when there's a completely blank slate, you've got to decide what problems do you solve first. How did you actually approach that when you joined a few years back?
Yeah, so I would say the evolution of we'll say the implementation of processes has been incremental. It started with a need on the pay side with accounts payable, which really led us to Coupa as a solution. And the question was, to procure to pay, module or not to procure to pay module with Coupa. And so we ended up going with Coupa. Um,
When
so
was this out of interest? Just to set context, was this how many years ago was this?
So it was shortly after I joined. It was about 6 months after I joined. So it was pretty quick after, um, we had brought in a new controller. He felt strongly about certain aspects of the pay team and how to improve it. That identified the need for pay, and I said, "Hey, coach, put me in. I would love to, talk about procure to pay as well." And so we basically had the choice of go with Coupa all in one, or put together some combination of tools and services.
Interesting. Okay, so what, 5 years ish ago? Because obviously the market's changed so much now with people that don't ever go to a P2P and stay best of breed versus not. I mean, what made you decide? You've now decided to integrate Omnia kind of into Coupa. So you're kind of plugging in around it rather than completely ripping it out, which quite a few folks seem to do. What was your stance on that?
Yeah, I think some like one critical aspect of our implementation of Coupa was that, like, even though we had put the procure to pay in place, we also had a CLM. We had other requirements that requesters had to go to multiple places to complete a single request. And so that was causing natural friction. Um, and we had we had worked with our CLM to create integrations and to automate as much of that as possible. But just as we had solved for that, there were new kind of new entrants to the party who wanted to be part of transactions at different stages to mitigate risk, and rightly so. And so we were looking for a solution, an intake and orchestration layer, to help us put the right activity in the right sequence with the right people, so that nobody was having to do any rework or kind of reverse the process, which ultimately destroys leverage for procurement. You just run out of time to do anything meaningful. Um,
Yeah,
so that's what drove us to Omnia, and as I mentioned, we worked on pairing together our procure to pay with our CLM. That I mean, Thumbtack, just in general, but also within the procurement team, we tend to partner hard with our vendors. So we try to create as much value for both sides. So we are very deeply integrated with Coupa, including that CLM integration. So a full rip and replace for kind of what we had built. It wasn't a 3-month project. It wasn't anything we could do in tandem with implementation of Omnia. It's kind of a multi-year, multiple parties transformation that brings everybody together at the table. In the real world, I wasn't going to say, "Hey, we're doing this." Rather, Omnia let us create the opportunity for modifying the user experience without, really ushering in that disruption. So I can keep some of the procure to pay and the AP kind of infrastructure that works today, layer Omnia to create the experience that I want requesters to have, and then, as time goes on, we can evaluate what's best for the business. But it's a way
yeah.
for me to have my cake and eat it, and my stakeholders and my business partners, and most importantly, to create a better user experience for requesters, for participants initiating the procurement process.
Sure. No, I think it makes sense. And I think also you've answered kind of the business reality. Because if I look at the companies we're working with, the ones that can get out of their P2P, probably 50 to 70% are, when the renewal is near enough or they're not so embedded that it's just too much work to get out of it. But as you said, once you've already done the work to get it live, maybe you're midway through a contract, it often isn't worth the lift. And I think people often look for perfect when you've got to get started, drive the transformation, improve the user experience, which is obviously what you've done at Thumbtack. So yeah, totally makes sense. And you've obviously come to market then, realize, right, I can't get rid of Cooper. It's really embedded. It is what it is. Whether we like that or we don't, it's there. It's not going to be taken down right away. So what you started to explore tools. What was your approach to that evaluation? We're in a busy market. Everyone's claiming to have this AI or that AI. How did you separate kind of the serious vendors from just AI theater?
Yeah, so kind of realizing that the comment that just came through. There are lots of questions, and I want to make sure there's lots of time for you to be able to answer those for the participants. So to quickly outline what I was looking for, the RFP was very outcome focused. I wanted a requester experience that was awesome. And so evaluating all the different options and kind of what those would mean for us and the process we would be forcing people through. Like Omnia really was the choice that allowed us to create that custom experience that allowed people to use the tools that they wanted without the pressure to get pushed into like a best of suite or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
And
and you get certain sales pitches, right? Like, hey, we can help you reduce your licenses, your Coupa licenses, or some things just don't materialize. AI, claims and things like that. Some things just don't materialize from the initial sales call to the actual operation. And kind of the one thing that uh, I think kept me driven through the whole process was that what is the requester experience going to be with this tool? And again, Omnia was always just the one that came through the most.
okay, great to hear. And you've now got a sort of, I suppose you're in the mindset of thinking about ROI, making procurement more strategic. You're now in that next chapter that a lot of people are trying to get to. How do you actually think about that ROI when you're demonstrating that more broadly?
Yeah, so one thing in a recent company meeting, our CEO said that he wants people spending less work on work. And that really it really resonated with me, not because I was that's the problem I was trying to solve at the moment, so I felt like, that statement was personally cheering me on, but I feel that to my core because again, uh, we want people to initiate a request in the procurement process and get what they need, and then and make it happen as quickly and efficiently as possible so that they can go back and do the things that they're good at, rather than having to spend time following up and kind of pushing things through. So that's kind of the North Star of how I think about ROI is, how much time are we reducing for everyday people who are not procurement professionals, in the procurement process.
Yeah, totally. I think it's important to have that broader view and just think, what's the employee's perspective on what we're actually doing here? Are there like certain outcomes you're aiming for over the next, say, I don't know, 6 to 12 months that you're just trying to hit?
Yeah, I think there are some specific things that I'm looking for. As I mentioned, I want people spending less time in the procurement process. I want them to say to my team, "Wow, this is much lighter," or "This feels right." So those are the types of indication and feedback we're looking for. I'm also looking to create like tailored experiences and journeys in the procurement process. So different teams have different needs. Um, Software evaluation is not the same as a hotel contract. And so I want to make sure that Omnia gives us the ability to create those custom experiences. I want to make sure that those experiences are materializing in Omnia. And so that, again, those teams are being asked for exactly what's needed and nothing more, and it gets them to resolution faster. Um, and kind of with the last bit there, I would love to create more, create more value for the teams that I support. So if we're successful in those things, then I will be able to execute on creating more value for my stakeholders and budget owners, and that'll come through in the level at which I'm able to partner with my internal stakeholders.
Yeah, makes total sense. Sounds like a very pragmatic view as well of making an impact, beyond just simple savings targets, but actually that broader view. Maybe if we
Yeah.
shift gears slightly into, we talked about AI a bit, but maybe we talk about some practical examples of sort of how you're going to use AI or how you're using AI to make experiences more automated. Because I think that's a key opportunity here as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you know, as is the case with every company, their leadership is saying, "Hey, look for ways for to augment your teams and your processes with AI." I very much subscribe to kind of the theme of today's webinar, which is your processes have to be good. So on top of a super solid process that's custom, for all your stakeholders in a really great orchestration and intake and orchestration tool, being able to like layer on like the document upload, and so the intake process just becomes that much easier. I think that's gonna just be an automatic, level up there. And then I think the the fact that Omni is going to be able to call out the aspects of the process where maybe there's resistance or it takes more time or there are error rates or things like that. That's going to be a huge way to augment the time my team spends on improving the process. So instead of having to spend all the time diagnosing and solving the system, it's kind of like Roman concrete. It's when it gets wet, it self heals. When Omnia, takes people through the process, it will give us the indications of this is where things need to be fixed. We can go to the back end and make those fixes quickly. So that's what I'm most looking
Yeah.
to.
It's great to hear you reference such a new feature. For those listening, actually, maybe I'll just briefly explain or digress here. But I think what you were just explaining, James, was called kind of AI form insights, and something we shipped a few weeks ago now. So pretty new, and basically it analyzes. There's an agent layer that analyzes the entire process, and it flags to the procurement leaders. Here are the questions that are slowing it up. Here are the ones people don't like. This is this is the part of the workflow that is slowing the whole thing down. And it's basically like having an assistant comb through all the questions you've asked. And as you said, it's one of those things, it's hard to have a perfect flow all the time. But if you have an agent checking and looking at the bottlenecks, it really helps. But yeah, great to hear you talk about that one. Out of interest, how have people reacted? Like just the normal Thumbtack employee who might not be a procurement expert by any stretch. What's the feedback been?
Yeah, so I would say that I have had a 100% valuable feedback rate. But I'm not going to say that it's 100% positive. And that's a good thing. Like I'm not looking for like a perfect record on this. Some teams have come to me and said, "Hey, this doesn't really fit," or I feel like this is too heavy in this area. And so this kind of goes back to what I said previously is like I don't want to create a one size fits all and then push everybody through it. It's going to be too much for some and not enough for others. So I think I really think there's that feedback is helping us navigate and go the direction we want to. It's kind of like a phase two of our implementation, but like what it's going to result in is that end state of people being taken care of and the amount of time that they spend in the process minimized. Um, and really, I mean, the value is I can go in and make those changes on the back end. And some are more complicated than others. Some I need help on, and others I can handle myself. But like at the end of the day, like I have the ability to manage that experience for those teams. So that's like that feedback loop. It's only going to get better. It's and for all the enhancements in the world of the system, doing what it does, like that stakeholder feedback is what's most important because uh that experience, that user experience, which was kind of my North Star on the RFP, like that will always be my focus. And yeah, and I'm just glad that
Yeah.
Omni is helping us achieve that right now.
No, I like the kind of authenticity there, but I think it's key that you've got to release the process, let people judge it, give you feedback. And then, as you said, the beauty of a platform like Omnia is it can be fast. So, when you get the feedback, you can make the change, improve the intake, improve the form, improve the process. I think with a lot of legacy systems, that iterative loop wasn't very fast. So people judge the process and it's still bad. and that just leads to low sentiment and a damaged reputation. I'm going to maybe one or two more, and then we'll do Q&A. But I'm going to put you on the spot slightly here, James, because I'm going to ask for a very concise one. But let's say you have to summarize the value of intake and orchestration, or the value of Omnia, in one sentence. You only get a short time here to your CFO. How would you describe it?
I mean, it goes back to what, kind of again, the thesis. You can't throw technology or AI at a bad process, or like a immature process, and hope that it's going to get you across the finish line. You really cannot automate that chaos. But with the right intake and orchestration, again, process and logic in place, you can turn that chaos into something that's not only usable, but it's scalable. You can get good data out of it, like you mentioned earlier, and it's actually like a good user experience. And so that's kind
Well,
of that's
I like the
the
explanation. It was longer than a sentence, but I'll let you off. It
yeah,
was a
yeah.
nice
Sorry,
explanation
it was
nonetheless.
a run-on sentence. Procurement
Yeah.
procurement professionals are that's a hazard of the profession.
Love it. Maybe final one here, and then let's do some Q&A. But I
Yeah.
think you're somebody that people will be listening to now thinking, right, you've invested heavily in this space. You evaluated all the market. You've ended up now with Omnia. You've tried different systems. How are you thinking about the future of procurement? What are you actually trying to build towards if we zoom out now and look at a bit more at the vision?
Yeah, I currently operate a lean, like high functioning team. I want to keep it that way to the extent possible. As the business scales, the team will need to scale. But to the extent possible, I would love to scale the team first with technology. Um, I don't want to I don't want to rely on, oh, I just need more headcount to solve this problem. I want there to be a very solid process in place. I want that process to be governed by a tool that works for me and my team, and gives us the ability to be in the strategic and not in the traffic cop, in a busy intersection mode, but to be that thought leader and to put the strategy forth. And so I think that's, people being able to interact with the platform where they want to, including Slack, and really being able to leverage data that has been, put in the system 1,000 times for 1,000, previous requests, and just to get really smart about how things are done, so that we're not just asking for repetitive behaviors. And so again, I'm looking to upscale my team into strategic procurement professionals through the use of the Omnia at this point.
Love it. Amazing. Right, let's wrap up there. So we've got time for Q&A. First, James, just thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate the
Good.
level of candor there and how sort of, just authentic that was. Dawn, I've seen we have a ton of questions come through. Do
Oh,
I
we
pluck
sure
these
do.
out, or do you want to? How should we run this?
Yeah, so let me start. I'm going to go through them. And folks, like I said, if we don't get to your question, Ben will follow up with you, and James will as well. So let's do some easy ones. What LLM does your platform employ?
All of the top ones, to be honest. We've made a decision as a business not to just get into bed with one of the large providers, because we want basically benefit from the latest in the models. So we're using the
Mhm.
latest models from OpenAI and Anthropic and a few others as well, just to let them sort of compete and play off each other. And that seems to be leading to the best outcomes.
I like that. Do you also address category management and governance through Omnia?
Yes, it's quite a broad question, but yes, essentially, Omni is handling all areas of indirect spend across
Mhm.
categories. It depends how the company splits it, but yes. So the areas we're not tackling is most direct. So if you look at one of our customers like Albertsons, the
Mhm.
huge retailer, they sell lots of fruit and veg. They're not using Omni to buy fruit and veg, but they're using it for all the different categories of indirect spend, essentially. And from a governance perspective, we handle everything. So supplier risk management or supplier management at large is the same whether it's direct or indirect. this notion of continuous risk monitoring and so forth. So yeah, it's pretty broad, and all of our customers use us across those categories.
That's perfect. Now, a number of people said they'd love to see your list of integrations and vendor management options. Do you think that's something you might be able to send out to people post-webinar?
Yeah, I think it's on our website as well. But yeah, we could get
Ah,
something out. It's on
perfect.
basically, it's all customer driven, right? So any system that is you probably have in each part of your stack, CLM, ERP,
Mhm.
um, ticketing, etc., will likely have an integration, but it's likely not the first time we've heard it. And there are some nuanced systems that are a bit old school or don't have that many users. We actually built an integration builder for those sort of lightweight integrations. So as well as having an open API that people can use, we have an integration builder that is part of the platform. So people can build integrations into systems that maybe nobody else is using nowadays, but they still can't get off. And we've realized when you're serving large enterprise, you need to give them that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm going to go over to you, James. What controls are in your process to ensure someone isn't requesting a solution that's redundant to something your company is already using?
Yes, great question. I think that a big aspect of that is your process design. So that's not necessarily a like an Omnia control
Hmm.
feature, but Omnia allows you to put again the right steps in the right sequence with the right people as either notifications or tasks or approvers to be able to weigh in when you're supposed to. Yeah, so you can create the controls that you need, however complex they may be, for different scenarios. And again, the important part is with the customizable logic of Omnia, you can
Hmm.
say, for these purchase types, absolutely make sure all these controls are in place. For these other purchase types, uh, leave them out. And so that way you can create a completely customizable experience. So you're not, requiring a full uh, data privacy or security assessment for something that doesn't require it.
You're right. So this one's also for you. And how did Thumbtack arrive at the supplier selection of Omnia? Now, I heard you say it was ease of use, usability, that type of thing was one of the deciding factors. But can you say other things that helped you get to the selection?
Yeah, I think it required us to be very persistent about the integrations and being able to demonstrate that what we were asking for was in fact possible and being relentless about it.
Mhm.
And our our sales rep through the process at Omnia, he's a champ, and he is great. But I'll say that like we we partner hard and we work together with our suppliers, but we were also very relentless in saying no, like these are our minimum requirements. And being uncompromising on the ones that we knew we needed to create what we were looking to create. And so that's how we ended up with Omnia. And then what I will say is that like with Omnia, uh the setup process and the implementation process, there's a lot of discovery. I know Ben mentioned that there's an audit
Mhm.
that is done to ensure that there is a completeness there. So it is a process, and you want to turn over all the rocks because at that point, Omnia can really be valuable to say, there are great ways to handle this. Better, good, better, best, right?
Mhm.
And so they can help you design your, your process based on what they're seeing with other customers as well. So I would say that, yeah, just being unrelenting and uncompromising in what you're looking for by that defined scope. Uh, that's how you're going to get to any solution. That's what you actually need. And in our case, it was Omnia for intake and orchestration.
Well, I'm going to have to use that quote, we partner hard. So that is, that's
I
a good
did.
way to say it.
It's yeah. I'm open sourcing that one. So Creative Commons zero. It's everybody's.
Yep. So I do want to say too that James has taken a red eye to get to London. And so he's existing on 3 hours of sleep. But that's how important it was to be on this webinar today. is he said, I'm going to get there early. I don't care if I have had no sleep, but I'm here for Omnia and I'm going to show up. So as soon as we're done, I hope you jump right in bed. So, but then as you expand in the US, do American companies come in at a different maturity level than your European customers, or is you can't automate chaos universal?
Oh, tricky one. I think, you know what, it depends more on the industry than the geography. Generically speaking, I'll speak in general terms. European companies tend to be more regulated, and so their requirements for risk management, third-party risk management, supply risk monitoring are greater. And that's
Mhm.
probably pushed us to have a leading solution. So we're very good at TPRM as well as procurement. And that's because we were pushed by some very tricky customers who are European regulated fintechs and so on.
Mhm.
Beyond that, though, I suppose that's an industry thing too. It does seem pretty universal. We see traction across most industries, most geographies. And yeah, I think there's probably more appetite in the US to move at speed, a bit more bullishness. I think there's a conservatism in the UK that we need to push past. But I'd say lots of trends across the market globally.
But now we don't really have time to get into a deep question. And Ben, you have generated a lot of interest. But how about this? I'd love to see what integrations are available, whether it's an API or MCP, and which ERP systems can be integrated. Once again, that's available on your website.
It is, yeah. All yes to all though, like MCP, all the ERPs and APIs. So yes, but come in, talk to us and we'll give some proper information on that because I agree we're running out of time.
We are definitely running out of time. So, folks, all right, how long? All right, this is for you again, James. How long did it take to complete integration of Omnia with existing Procure and AP infrastructure, which was Coupa at the time, at Thumbtacks?
Yeah. So I think I mean it was about a three or 4 month process for our initial implementation. And as I mentioned, we're kind of in a phase two where we're continuing to create those custom experiences. So I would say that, it is a procurement transformation project. Strap in, it's gonna be a wild ride and it's gonna be a lot of work, but the end goal is that you have a system that works for you and it works for requesters.
And that is not a long integration time. So I applaud you on that. So Ben and James, we are out of time right now. We only ask people to reserve an hour of their time. We're at the top of the hour. So I want to thank Omnia. I want to make sure that folks, you get your questions, go ahead and keep typing them in. We will send the contact information for both James and Ben in the follow-up along with the slides and a recording from today. So we'll make sure that your questions get to our presenters. We'll make sure that they have a chance to answer them for you. But you generated a lot of great comments in the chat. You've generated a lot of great questions. People are really curious. So people are really excited to carry on the conversation. So Omnia is going to be showing up at a lot of SIG events this year. So if you are North American based, we'd love to get you in front of them. We'd love to help you with the introduction. And with that, top of the hour. So Ben, thank you so much for bringing us a great presentation. And James, I love Thumbtack. I'm a huge fan. So I was excited to see that you were going to be on today's webinar. So James, go to bed. Ben, good luck this week at your other event, and we will see you on a Power Hour webinar really soon.
So much. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for joining. See you, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.